Let's take a look at some of the stories making news in this morning's newspapers. I'm pleased to say we're joined by the journalist and broadcaster, Vidisha Mamata, and the CEO of International Marketing Partners, Alison Stewart. Alison, Vidisha, I can get your names right. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. Let's get straight into it. And we're going to start with a story about the Super Bowl. And by the looks of things, this is about Super Bowl ads, is it?
It is about Super Bowl ads. So first of all, you've got 100 million Americans, well, people around the world, most of them will be my countrymen in America, watching the Super Bowl. The advertisers, it says in this FT story, are expected to pay $7 million for a 30-second spot. So that's because you've got so many eyeballs. So this is going to be hugely profitable. But the really interesting thing for me about this particular Super Bowl is the fact that they're also simultaneously broadcasting it on Nickelodeon, which is a children's network. The ads will obviously be for children on that network. So there'll be the football, and then toys, and then the football. Which is really the first time they've ever done it.
I was going to say, are they selling different spots for different broadcasts, or is it just...
Yes. Okay. So the Nickelodeon channel will have certain ads. Exactly. Fantastic. But I mean, the fact that it's $7 million, you've got everybody's paying attention to Taylor Swift because her boyfriend is on the Kansas City Chiefs team. And the buzz around this particular Super Bowl is expected to be the biggest yet in terms of revenue for the broadcasters, the amount paid by the advertisers, and from a marketing point of view, this is just an incredible story.
And that's clearly the Taylor Swift effect as well, I think.
Absolutely.
It's drawn them all in. But are you going to be watching it tonight?
I actually am. Because I saw Rihanna, and then I saw the one before that had Eminem and 50 Cent, and I still remember the Madonna one, and I remember the Janet Jackson one. And it's
with Justin Timberlake.
Yes. I remember that. We all remember it well.
We do remember that one,
And I won't be watching the sports bit, just the entertainment bit.
I think Usher's doing the halftime show, and I think I might well tune in for that too. All right, let's move on to some news on the front page here of the Sunday Times. And this is Michael Gove. He's going to be on with Trevor Phillips later. What's he talking about in the Times?
It's not as exciting as Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. It's Michael Gove saying something very commonsensical, which I agree with, which is that if we're not careful, young people are going to move away from the voting process and faith in politics, because it used to be that when you're around 30 years old, you'd say to yourself, I'm going to work, I'll be able to put down a down payment on a house, I'll get a mortgage, and young people are finding that that's no longer possible because house prices have doubled and tripled in the last few years. Gove is saying that if we're not careful, young people are going to go towards authoritarian leaders. I don't think that's really true, but I do think that it's clearly, obviously true that so many people well into their 40s actually are trapped in rentals which are too high or very, very imperfect housing situations where they can't do normal things like they want to get married and have kids, they want to establish a family life, but they can't do it with any stability.
It's an interesting intellectual leap that he's taking there, but you can see it's this idea that, you know, you work, you pay into society, you expect to be able to get your rewards by owning your own home. And if you don't, then perhaps you're going to think of another way of governing the country. I think the Resolution Foundation recently put out statistics that the most common form for 18 to 34s to live is with their parents.
Completely true.
And devastating.
Totally, and Gove actually says, unless you're really lucky and you've got the bank of mum and dad to help you, you're stuck in this loop, you're stuck in a situation you can't get out of.
Yeah, as someone of that sort of generation, I don't know any of my friends who bought their own home without the help from their parents. Which is just, well, it's a tragedy.
The times we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, to your story, Alison, and this is within the Times, Sunday Times again, and this is about a music story about Michael Jackson.
It is. So, Sony Music has purchased half of the, invested 50% into the back catalogue of Michael Jackson and his estate's assets, if you like, of the music he wrote and recorded.
Right.
Half of that is $600 million, which equates to roughly 475 million pounds. In other words, basically $1 billion is the value of the Michael Jackson music catalog in its own right. Why is this an interesting business story? Because we're increasingly seeing artists monetize their intellectual property. So lots of other, obviously the Beatles' back catalog is one we know well, But living artists are doing this now as also, because they figure, why don't I exploit the commercial value of this body of work while I'm alive rather than do it at any other point? But it's just that I think the figures are what's so staggering.
Yeah, it's a huge amount of money. It's going to the estate, I imagine, as well, right?
Yes,
Is that where
it is.
the money
It
going?
is. Yeah.
I mean, talking about Taylor Swift again, she's the one. She bought back her masters, re-recorded all those albums, and made all the money back. It's
Absolutely.
fantastic, right?
Yeah, really smart.
Really smart.
Such a
Smart lady. We're fans of
Yeah,
hers.
very smart
Got a brain.
businesswoman. Yeah.
Fantastic songwriter. All right, let's have a quick look, if we can, at the story in the Telegraph, Bidisha, about the post office.
This is an ongoing scandal. So everyone's been following a case called Bates versus the Post Office, and it ties in with the fact that so many postmasters, the ones that run our lovely local post office, they are self-employed, and they were persecuted by Post Office, the company, the kind of corporation, because the accounting software had a flaw in it, and it looked like there was a shortfall in income, and the Post Office accused the postmasters of stealing this money. Some of them did jail time for it. That's now been ironed out in terms of the programming, but some of the postmasters are saying they're still receiving those extremely intimidating demand letters. Now, we know what happens. A big company employs a sort of debt collection agency, and they harangue people. It's extremely intimidating, extremely worrying, and people are losing out not just their peace of mind, but also just their sense of integrity.
Yeah.
And we know that this shouldn't happen because in Bates versus the Post Office was censured for it. We all know that it's a scandal. So these kinds of intimidation tactics shouldn't be happening.
We're going to be speaking to a former sub-postmaster at 10 after 7, Ian Castleton, to get his thoughts on this, because it's also come out today that Fujitsu, the company behind Horizon, has still got billions of pounds worth of contracts with government organisations. Alison, Bidisha, thank you very much for that. More from you later on in the morning. For now, then, let's take a look at the weather forecast.